Welcome back to Attitude After Results, presented by Teamwork Online and the Clubhouse. Excited to talk with you guys today. Excited to bring Robert Dranoff on as a guest today. We're going to talk a little bit about college athletics, where the scope is, and candidly, for our audience, this is exactly for you. These type of individuals, the knowledge that he's going to bring today is going to be directly for you in the college sense and the young professional sense. We're going to learn a little bit today. I'm going to kick it off to him to introduce himself, what he's done with his career, where he's at now, and then we're going to dive into it. Robert Dranoff, welcome to the Attitude After Results podcast.
I appreciate it, Tanner. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and the folks that listen to your podcast. I think any opportunity to help students, to help young people and young professionals, and I always talk about getting a job and getting the next job, and so any chance to help people is always great for me. So thanks. We met through the Clubhouse. I'm a mentor like you on there. This week has been a busy one for me. I had a couple students reach out, and so I enjoy that. I've been in college athletics. Well, I was in college athletics up until last summer for about 45 years. It's amazing how fast that went in my life, but I got a chance to do a lot of really good things during my career. I went to St. John's University in New York. I'm still based in New York. St. John's, I graduated from there back in the late 70s in one of the first sport management academic programs really in the country, and in one of the first classes that St. John's graduated. And amazingly, I got a job at St. John's right out of college and right out of school. Just right place, right time, which was a great lesson for me, and took full advantage of it. It was an amazing learning experience for me. My first job was assistant to the athletic director. It was a newly created position. My job was to monitor the academics and the compliance for the athletic program, and then expanded into all sorts of other things within there. Working for a man who ended up becoming my mentor and friend, along with my boss, Jack Kaiser, one of the best, not only one of the best athletic directors, I think, ever, but also one of the best people I ever met, and learned a ton from him. Got out of that business for a while and into the sporting goods business, which was, I found out very quickly, was definitely not my strength as a career or financially or any other way, but was then lucky enough to get my first athletic director's job at a Division III school, a State University of New York school, college at Old Westbury. Again, another great learning experience. So much different from St. John's University in Division I, and really rebuilding a program that had lost a lot of sport participation, and really tried to set up some systems and add sports and build that program. From there, I became the athletic director at a school called Dowling College on Long Island, Division II. Spent a good chunk of my career there. Again, every step of the way, it was just more. I think the attraction for me was that it was a level up and private institution, but it was a school that had no athletic facilities. I used to tell people the only athletic facility we had was a river behind the school where we had a rowing team. Everything else was rented, borrowed, traded, that kind of thing, fields and indoor space. And
I think one of the cool things that I'm hearing so far, and I think what our listeners are going to learn as we go, we're gonna pack this thing full of information, full of knowledge, is you don't have to start. I mean, people are going to look at your LinkedIn. You were the commissioner of a D1 university, right? People are going to look at it and be like, oh my goodness, I want to be an athletic director. I want to be a commissioner. I want to be a GM. There are steps along the way and skills along the way that you have to learn. And honestly, that takes time, and you have to go different stops along the way to get there. And I think that's something that you're sharing with us right now is, hey, here's the thing. I started as kind of a low-level assistant, like, hey, tell me what to do. I'm going to do it, right? And then I'm going to go from D1 all the way to D3 because I want a shot to be an AD, right? And I'm not going to just go into the University of Alabama and just, boom, here I am. I got the head coaching job. Or go to UConn and all of a sudden I'm the head coach at UConn or the athletic director over here at Kentucky, right? It takes time, and each step along the way is building knowledge, which I think we're going to get a lot from today. So I appreciate you sharing so far. Keep it going. I don't want to cut you off. Sorry about that.
No,
but, I think it's important.
And I think the other thing is, I'm not going to lie, it wasn't intentional. I needed a job, but I knew it was a job that I could do, but the other part is that the reason I got it, the reason I got most of the jobs through, I don't even know what networking meant. I don't think it was a word back when I was young, but I mean, again, the relationships I built and the knowledge that I gained. And truthfully, I think the biggest thing was I was in programs with small staffs where whether I liked it or not, I was going to have to do most of the work and or figure out a way to get the work done. And so, work ethic to me was always the thing. That's how I got my job at St. John's. I had interned at a school. That AD and baseball coach happened to be friends with Jack Kaiser at St. John's. And when the job came up and they said, what about this Dranoff guy? And he said, well, he works hard. I can tell you that, and that helped. I went from Dowling. I left Dowling. I was working on my doctorate at the time, and I had an opportunity at the community college, one of them here on Long Island, and became the athletic director there and an assistant dean for a few years. It was a world that I didn't know anything about junior college athletics, but it was a great step for me. And as I was sitting there, and probably could have stayed there the rest of my life, wasn't that hard a job? It was hard at times, but it was a whole different level of expectation from the institution. And the folks at the East Coast Conference, the Division II conference I had been part of as AD at Dowling, came to me and said, are you interested? And I, part of it was emotional. Part of it was just the next great opportunity, and took that, assumed I'd be there for a couple of years, then back on a campus. And 16 years later, that was my last job, last job in athletics. So I finished that up in the spring. Along the way, also, I've taught sport management at a few different schools, including St. John's, where I graduated from, and I worked, and I've been teaching there for close to 20 years now in sport management, which is kind of my focus now, and something I really enjoy. But I really, it was a great run, and it, like I said, educational as well as, creating a career for myself.
I love that. You mentioned being a professor for roughly 20 years. Not only were you a professor and still are at St. John's, you've also been in the field, in the career path. And I think that's one thing that is super valuable, one for our audience, but two for me to learn too, is I want to learn from people. And for everybody out there listening, you want to learn from people who have done the work. Not to discount or discredit people who haven't done the work or been in the industry, but sports changes often, right? As the world changes, sports changes so often. I mean, think of it, even in the last 5 years, look at NIL. I mean, that is changing the landscape of professional sports as well, because some people are now staying in school because of it, right? And obviously it's changing the college landscape as well. But the opportunity for you to teach people and work in the field, I think, is super valuable. I'm curious, as we start today in kind of the question path that we're going to go down, and just to understand you and understand the college landscape a little bit more. If I'm in school, right? If I'm in school and I'm in college, how do I prepare for a career in college athletics or in sports and rec management? Again, you've seen both sides of it, so you have a wonderful viewpoint on it. Walk us through a little bit what that looks like.
Great question. I'm pleased that you asked that, and here's the thing. There's a ton of sport management and sport and rec programs out there. Like I said, I was at the beginning, and it's expanded, and that's exciting. And I know a lot of students come through. Years ago, it was a key. Getting your degree in that field was a key to a job because you were better prepared, hopefully, and it opened up some doors. But I think you know that there's no requirement now to have a degree in that field in order to get a job in sports. And I think that teaches a lesson in itself is that how do you prepare? I think that in anything, whatever you're going to study, if your goal is to work in sports, there are going to be opportunities. It might take some people a little longer, but there are opportunities because, like you gave it a perfect example of a new part of the sport industry, NIL, which obviously touches college, as you said, it touches the pros. But there's going to be so many more opportunities in that field, whether you're in marketing or you're in finance or you're in counseling or there's so many opportunities. But the difference is always going to be, how do you prepare? You work hard in school, you treat it like a job, you get opportunities, you make sure you're involved, whether it's an internship or a part-time paid job or volunteer. You seek out opportunities and meet as many people as you can. You impress your professors and take advantage of people that are in the field. You mentioned, to me, I think the value I bring to any academic program is because of a background in the work that I did. But I work with professors that have perhaps less professional background in the field than me, but also, have worked hard for their academic preparation. I think either way, it works. The degree is important. The taking advantage of the opportunities is even more important. And putting yourself out there in the field as soon as you can is essential. You talk to students through the clubhouse, and the ones that we talk to probably are at least motivated to talk to us. Some of them are doing assignments for classes for sure, but most of them are motivated to talk to us. It's hard. It's hard. I'm going to just tell you, and I'll probably say it again because I just said it to some students recently, is that how do you make yourself different, for pursuing your career? How do you make yourself different? There's plenty of people that will say, well, I'm either shy or I got too much going on, or, I'll do it at some point. I'll reach out. I'll start taking advantage of these experiences. And all that probably is real in their lives. But for every time that you say, well, I'll get to that, there's somebody else that's already doing it. And the job that you want or the career that you want, they want to. And if they're doing more work and they're getting involved and meeting more people, they're going to get the job that you want. Unless you have an amazing opportunity and somebody's going to hand it to you. And I don't think that happens too often,
And it's about action. From what you're saying right now, it's about action. If you listen to anything that we've been doing, and we've done, after this episode, will be closer to 90 episodes here on Attitude for Results. If you listen to all of these twice or three times, that's great. I love you. I appreciate you. I hope you're sharing everything. That does nothing for you if you just listen. Nothing. It does nothing. If the people that we're bringing on and that dedication of time and value that we're creating here is all about you just listening and no action, we lose. We fail, right? I've had a lot of opportunity recently because people are starting to graduate, right? Oh, man, I'm done with my capstone class in grad school after 6 years. I think I should start looking for a job.
Yep.
Oh, man, it's end of senior year. Like, I hope I get a job here soon. I think, as soon as June or July hits, now it's time that I should be in the workforce. Whoa, hang on. Let's back up a little bit. There are people, there are elite individuals that are out there right now as freshmen, sophomore, juniors, competing with you, and frankly, probably have a little more steam because they have a little more time. You and I talked briefly previously about some of the biggest challenges with students getting into the industry, or biggest frustrations that you've heard throughout your career so far. Some of those being about finding jobs and doing informational interviews. I think it goes back to the point that you just said of, hey, let's try to think about having a career path a little bit prior. Let's take our work in school, as a job and not just a 4-year party that you hope to have at. Now, don't get me wrong, I had a little bit of fun in college too, right? But it's not just a 4-year party where after you graduate, you're like, okay, somebody should give me a job because I have a degree. A degree at this point, transparently, the piece of paper itself probably doesn't mean a whole lot. A lot of people have them, right? What are you doing in addition to that? So walk me through some of the biggest challenges that you've heard from students about getting into the industry, or some of the biggest frustrations, and how you'd overcome those.
Yeah, I'm good with the frustrations part. I'm not sure I have all the solutions. Um, some of the things that you and I talked about when we spoke a couple weeks ago, that I hear from students is, where do I find these opportunities? That's always the main one. And most schools have career development areas, offices, and they'll have job boards, and some do a really good job to develop those relationships and help the students develop those relationships, and will vet those opportunities a little bit, and build connections in this industry so they could advise students. But a lot of students still are taking the tact of, going on big job boards, and which some students will get those opportunities, but they also have to remember that, especially when you're in an entry level position, the jobs you're applying for, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of other people applying at the same time. So unless you've done all the background work and make sure that your resume is perfect and compliant with all the technology, your resume may never even get looked at. Similarly, they'll go on LinkedIn, which is a great site, but if you're only going on LinkedIn to look for jobs and apply for jobs, it's not enough. What else are you using? Are you building your network there? Are you connecting with me and then looking at my contacts and reaching out to those people? Most schools have job fairs, which are valuable experiences, and students should always take advantage of those if they can. But are you showing up and you're, and just walking around and saying hi? Are you taking your resume and shoving it into a pile, or are you taking the time to actually meet and sit down with somebody and get their information and then follow up with them? I thought it was the perfect thing that you said. All that stuff is okay, but if there's no action, then so what are the solutions? So one of the classes I teach at St. John's is the capstone class for the grad program, and I've been lucky enough to teach this for many years. And I bring in professionals in the field from various areas of sport management, whether it's college or pro or youth sports or not-for-profits, and I do that because I do part of it. I do it because it's great for me, because I don't have to stand up there for 2 hours all the time. But it's also, these people are people I've gotten to know. A lot of them are my former students, who are doing well. But we use it to build informational interview skills, because every student gets assigned to a speaker, and they have to contact them and build some questions for them. I'm a big informational interview person. I believe in them very strongly. And for your folks, and I'm sure you've talked about it, but informational interviews, it's not about applying for the job and going through, hoping you're going to get an interview, but it is about building that relationship and taking a few minutes of somebody's time and asking them questions about their career, about their work. And as you build this relationship, maybe that does lead to an interview, or maybe it does lead to that person introducing you to somebody else. And so I force our students to do that. I tell them they have to do that. I also force them to listen to all these other interviews and send thank you notes to the speakers, which seems like such a simple thing, but when I first started teaching the class, there was no such thing as these online interview kind of things, and everybody had to come in person, which was always wonderful because students could ask questions and go up and shake hands and get business cards. A little different today, but I think those kind of opportunities, if they're given as a student, are valuable, and students should take advantage of them. If they're not given, then you got to find a way to start doing it on your own. And and building those kind of connections. One of the other things that, while I'm thinking about it, I want to say is that, um, in terms of how you navigate the frustrations of finding a job, it is hard. It is hard. And you have to look at finding the job like a job itself, where
Mm.
you're organized and you're doing your research and you're building those connections. And if you're not getting anywhere when you apply for jobs, then spend that time doing these informational interviews. Say, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 3 a week. I'm going to reach out to people, and I'm going to contact everyone on Dranoff's, on his LinkedIn. At least the people that are interesting to me. And I'm going to say I had Professor Dranoff in college, or I'm connected with them, or contact me, and I'll do an introduction for you. And not everybody will help you. Not everybody will respond, but the ones that will respond, take advantage of those. But the thing that I have learned, and I'm sure you see this too, so we're both on this Teamworks platform. And we're not doing it, we're not getting compensated for it. We're doing it because we think it's important to help. Besides those 100-something people that are on that platform, I believe that most people in this field want to help students and are willing to help. But if nobody asks them, they're not going to go search for somebody and say, hey, you want to talk today? The guy that's at the ticket office in Phoenix is not gonna call up and say, hey, I've been looking for people to talk to. But if you call them and say, can you give me 5 minutes? Most people want to help because they've been there. They've been there. It's a chance to help and give back.
One of the there's a couple different points that I want to unpack. That one, I think that our listeners are going to think this is probably set up because we preach the exact same thing you just said. It's not set up, I promise you. That's just what we feel. That's why we're having this conversation today. The first thing is people want to help. I have an acronym that I use. It's called API. It's Assume Positive Intent. Holistically, across the population, I believe people have a negative connotation towards other people. That's Tanner Natzke opinion, not scientifically proven. But I think people are like, oh man, I don't know, man. Robert Dranoff, he's been a commissioner, he's a professor. I don't know if I should reach out to him. What's the worst thing that happens? The worst thing that happens is you respond and say, thank you for reaching out. I don't have time, or maybe the worst thing is you don't respond. Well, guess what? You're right back to where you started. You're at the same spot. You cannot go backwards. And that's where I think a lot of people, I have an episode that came out. It's called Do Hard Things. Like, just go do something hard every day. Go do something that's tough every day. Challenge your mind. Create new neural pathways. Because now when I have some sort of connection with you, I'm like, hey, we need to talk. I love what you're doing. Like, let's get on. And guess what? Now we're having a conversation. We're dedicating an entire hour, right? So assuming positive intent, being able to go out and talk with people or ask people questions, closed mouths never get fed, ever. Like, if a baby bird's sitting in a tree right now and he doesn't open his mouth, not getting fed. Just not happening, right? The second thing I'd like to unpack is the informational interview part. I think is obviously very important. I absolutely love that point. The interesting part that I see is people want others to do the work for them. Of like, hey, Robert, I appreciate you connecting. Can you connect me with 72 individuals who are going to get me a job in sports? You're like, well, no, I'm not going to, because then I'm doing everything for you. Hey, here's 1 or 2 people. Well, guess what? As soon as you give me one person, Robert, now it's my job. It's my job to go get 1 or 2 people from that person, right? I had an individual, a guy the other day, come up, and so I've created a coaching platform with Attitude After Results. We created a website for it. We help individuals one-on-one coaching get from wherever they are right now to a job, mostly in the sports industry, but not confined to that. And so in this coaching platform, we've had a couple clients starting to come in and people that we're coaching through this process, the exact process that we're talking about right now. One of them came in and was like, hey, I'm looking for a job in sports. Cool. What are you looking to do? I'm looking to be in the Dallas market. Okay, cool. Dallas market, sports jobs. Yeah, I've interviewed for 3 or 4 jobs that they've offered me. I just really haven't liked them yet. I was like, well, what do you mean you haven't liked them yet? Well, like, it wasn't enough pay and it wasn't the right position. And, You know, it was a team that was kind of like second or third on my list, but I really want this one position with this one team and this one job and this one salary. And I was sitting there listening, and again, they are paying me to do this, so I am making sure that I'm doing everything possible to, one, give them positive feedback for what they're doing well, but also it's my job to coach them through the process. It's my job to say, hey, here's the thing, look in the mirror, you got to fix this and that, be based on my experience. I was like, hey, you've told me that you had the right salary here but the wrong title, the right title here but the wrong team, the right team here but the wrong this. You can't start at the top. That's not how this world works. And I think we're very entitled in today's society of, I need to be the commissioner or the GM tomorrow. It's like, well, you're 22. That's not happening. Right? Like, well, you just came out. I had a guy the other day that just came out of the military. Thank you very much for serving our country. He's a late bloomer in school because of that. You're not going to come out and just because of your age be like, okay, cool, like I'm the VP now because I'm 35, I came out of the military. No, you served our country. Thank you very much. Do not ever discredit that. But guess what? In the career path, you're starting from a young professional, right? You're not going to get to the top right away. So I'm curious to hear kind of your thoughts on people's almost entitlement or wanting to get to the top and not putting the work in. You explained your route to get to where you were. There was many bumps along the way. There was many places that might not have been the sexiest place to go to, but you did it anyways, right? What are your thoughts on that, and how can we kind of overcome that as a society?
Well, I'm a lot older than you. You sound like an old man already, getting frustrated. Listen, I feel that way completely. What you just said, and it's not everybody. It's not everybody. I think it goes back to my advice of being in there and your word action, doing the work. I do think in some cases there are certain people that feel that well, it's your job to go find me that job that I want, as opposed to having a real understanding of the process. I do understand the frustration from people that listen. I've spent money on degrees, or I have spent time building this part of my career. Now, why aren't these things coming to me? To me, it really comes down to how do you make your opportunities, and I think I do. When we talked, I said to you that I think your idea and the work that you do to counsel and guide your clients is really valuable, and I think it could be very successful. I'm sure it is successful already, and it's probably pretty gratifying when the people that you help are actually getting these positions. But there has to be a certain amount of realism too for these folks too, like you had said. When I was an athletic director, I would do these programs at schools where I would talk to them about NCAA eligibility or recruiting or scholarships and how all that worked. And I used to tell the people, listen, if it was a matter of how much money you spent on your kid to get them on the travel teams over the last X number of years, and all the money you spent following them around to all these tournaments, et cetera, and that should equate to the amount of scholarship money they were going to get, that would be a great world. But it really has to do with talent and and ability and drive and luck a lot of times too, being in the right place at the right time. And I think that's part of the lesson, that example that you gave of that person, maybe they do come up with the exact job that they want, which would be amazing. But I think that, we're also in a time in our world where there's a lot of questions about, careers and jobs. And so, to me, it all comes down to the hard work of how you're going to put yourself in those positions and the willingness to be flexible. Also, you made a really good point of that you're helping people in the sports world, but that might also translate to other areas. And I think in the sports industry, you need to understand that you're going to, your job may change and your goals may change within, and the skills that you're getting early on may translate into other things. When I bring on speakers, I try to, I really try to focus several of them in the area of sales in sports, because I think that's an area that could open up. If you could drive revenue to a professional team or a college athletic program, there's going to be opportunity for you there, whether you're in development and fundraising for a college or a not-for-profit organization, or you're skilled at selling tickets or sponsorships. Does really, and I'm sure that you hear this too. A lot of people come to you and say, "Well, I'm not interested in sales. I don't see myself in sales." To me, is if that's what's out there, then you got to start seeing yourself in that area and start building those skills and meeting people in that area. Or you got to think of what are the other things you could bring to the table. And sales is part of everything that we do, right? So, so I think that there's opportunity. I think there are people out there who feel that they're entitled, but I don't know necessarily that they're going to be the most successful, as opposed to the person that's willing to do the work.
You talk about sales, and some people might not want to go into it. We did a Attitude Effort Results college speaking series this year. Talked to just under 30 universities over the 2 semesters. And we're going to talk to probably double that next year, because we're going to have a little bit different of a process. We're going to be more efficient with what we're building. And my partner Hunter and I are going to split up our time. What we found a lot there is people being very against sales because of their experience with sales.
It's a great point.
I've said this a lot. I never wanted to get into sales. I thought it was slimy. I thought it was sleazy. Didn't want to do it. What I have found is there are only 2 career paths in the entire country. That's it. You can only do 2 things with your life. You can either sell or you can serve. Every career path in the country fits underneath those 2 categories. Professors, commissioners, they all serve the community. Doctors, lawyers, they all serve the community. Marketing serves sales, right? Sales obviously sells. Owners of companies are selling. The NBA players are serving an audience who are pushing promotions and marketing and partnerships, right? So you either sell or serve. I think that gives people an opportunity. Do you want to talk about sales specifically? Obviously, that's my background. I'm very passionate about it. Talk about sales specifically. Do you want to be a support system to sales, or do you want to be the one selling, right? That is a question where I don't think a lot of people are asking themselves of, hey, event management is great, but we're putting on an event that is then serving the people in the building. That's service. You can choose either one. For me, sales is not just about selling. It's about building relationships and being a rainmaker. Rainmakers in this world run the world, right? And so if I can be a rainmaker, if I can lead from the front, and I have had a lot of talking to me about that, because I want to go the service route. I love serving people. My deepest why in life is because I want to serve others, because God served us and died on the cross, right? That's my deepest why. I'll never push faith, but everybody here that listens knows where I stand, is serving people. I had some high-level people be like, listen, you can serve while selling. Right? Like, you need to be out there on the front lines selling. And so that's something where people don't necessarily want to get into it. They want to back up. Whoa, hang on. I don't want to sell. Car salesman, right? Slimy, sleazy. It is not just about selling. It's about building relationships. And it has changed my life, not my career. Take my career out of it. It has changed my life because I'm able to communicate with people way more effectively now and have deeper conversations, understand, like you and I have a conversation earlier, right? I get to understand what a commissioner does, because guess what? I currently am not a commissioner of Elite. I would like to learn how you guys run your business, right? I could run a construction company right now. Don't know the details. I know pretty high level how to run a construction company, right? Because I've been able to learn about that. So the sales aspect, I think I like that you bring that up. It's important for people out there to understand that it might not be the goal, but it's a great starting place, because you're going to learn so many different relational and communication skills that you will not get in other areas of your career.
I'm on board with you. I like how you started off by saying we people come to this with a bad impression because you don't like getting those phone calls. I got one while we were talking, getting the the phone calls from people trying to sell you stuff or trick you or those things. But I completely agree that it's an entryway. It could be the way. There's plenty of folks who have done really well in this area, and there's so much transferable skills. If you can start here, you could bring that into other areas of your life. I wonder. One of the things that I always bring up, and you talked about some of the programs you're going to be doing. I really think there's value because everyone I ask that comes on that, whether they're in marketing or sponsorship sales or fulfillment and all those kind of activation, I said to them, where can a student learn? I know that there are some schools that have a class in sales and maybe even some sales, majors or programs, but I really think it would be valuable for these sport management programs to all have, instructional or at least, touch on this stuff to teach the process and, and so when you're applying for a job and you don't have any background in sales, but that's the first way to get in, it would be great to be able to say, here's, I do have, I took a class or I understand this part. And so I think that's also part of it that, well, I don't want to do sales because I don't know sales, even though that, like you said, is a part of, good chance it's part of everything that you've been doing.
Yeah. I would not be doing myself or our audience I would be doing myself and our audience a disservice if I did not ask you, being an athletic director and a commission, about the current landscape of college athletics and higher education. There's a lot of people out there that are maybe against the higher education piece and getting into the workforce. Trade work is becoming very important. People can go right out of high school and start making really good money right away. And the college sport landscape is clearly changing right in front of our eyes very quickly. There's not a ton of regulations on the NIL PCS yet. Tell me a little bit about, from your experience, from what you're seeing, the current landscape and where we're going of college athletics and higher education.
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is that I'm not all that sad that I stopped, that I was able to stop working in that world last summer, although I'm still pretty involved.
Also, this is recorded and it'll be out there forever. So let's make sure we keep everything that we want to say, that we don't want to say in, and then we can share the rest.
Yeah, listen, I believe in education fully. That to me, I'm lucky enough that I spent a lot of time in education as a job, but also being a student. I have two daughters who both have their master's degree. One works in college sports. The other is a social worker working in a school setting. To me, education is important, but it's changed. And we could start there. Higher education, which for so many years, we were like you, probably we were pounded with the idea, well, you need a degree. You got to go to college. Whether you're an athlete or not, you got to, you need that degree. It's important. You're right. There's a lot of people that, whether it's the cost, the time, the results, somebody gave me a statistic before that doesn't help the higher education argument, that the percentage of people that come out with a college degree that are working in a undervalued role, so that you come out of school and the job that you're getting is financially is probably not where you thought you were going to be. And then fast forward 5 and then 10 years ago, 5 or 10 years in advance, they're still in an undervalued, role in terms of, financially. It's starting to get a little scary. Our economy right now, it's in a tough position, and I think so. The confidence in higher education has changed. We're also seeing they're predicting this enrollment cliff for the next 10 to 15 years, where the age of the number of traditional age college students is decreasing. So the competition for students at colleges is going to be difficult. You're already seeing colleges fail, and the conference I was involved in saw that, and so did some others, and so there's this combination of less confidence in higher education, um, the need, as you said, for people that they're to be successful professionally, whether it's in the trades or certain other areas. A college degree is maybe not necessary. There's other routes. That's going to have an impact on college athletics for sure. Um, all that's going on at the same time that whole world of big time college athletics has changed so much, and the trickle down is obvious into other institutions. So in for example, for NCAA or NAIA or maybe even in junior colleges, the number of students is less. So that's going to be a struggle. More competition for student athletes. The cost of running athletic programs is growing, and it paints a difficult picture in the future. I think the big universities, the Division I universities, should be okay, but there's not that many of them. In the whole scheme of things, there's a lot more when you combine Division II and Division III in the NCAA. A lot more schools at that level than there are in Division I, and they're not thinking that much about well, they're not thinking at all about revenue share or some of the students are taking advantage of NIL to benefit themselves, but not at the level that we're seeing in the larger power four conferences. So it sounds very negative, but the flip side of that for me is I still believe in education. I think there's a lot of students who do and see college athletics is not necessarily the opportunity to become professional in that field, but to continue to do something that's going to bring them joy and relationships and help them be a better overall, be prepared better overall for a career. And so college athletics, I think, will always be here. It's going to look different. And schools are going to have to make some big decisions coming up of what they can invest in college in the college athletics. So a Division III school that gives no athletic scholarship, that uses or has a college athletic program for both enrollment reasons, for to be part of the community, to build relationships, to build connections with alumni. All that's going to continue, and but it's going to probably be more expensive for them to run their programs, and they'll be more competitive to find enough students to participate. Division II is a scholarship level NCAA. That's where I spent most of my career in college athletics. A lot of challenges because it's a combination of public and private institutions. But for a long time, I've had this belief that Division II is the division that offers a balanced approach, so that the understanding is athletics is important and high level participation competition is important, but by the same token, focus on your academics, focus on all those other parts, community service, all those other parts that build the student athlete. The biggest problem, I think, is going to be in Division I, just because you have that battle of haves and have-nots, and that's going to be where the haves are going to be fine. The lower level Division I is going to really have to make tough decisions about how they can compete and move forward. I'm an optimist when it comes to athletics. I think it's always going to be there. College athletics is valuable for so many reasons. But all the things that we've talked about today, about taking action, going out, doing the research, meeting people, looking for opportunity, that's going to be what all those people in college athletics need to keep doing, to get support and try to make this thing work.
I love it. Well, I got one last question to wrap it up today. I ask almost every guest if I remember, which most of the time I do. What does attitude, effort, results mean to Robert Dranoff?
Well, I love that. I love your approach, and I love your that you talk about that as being a key part of what you do in your life and professionally. And it kind of goes back to the first thing we talked, or the first stuff we talked about. To me, what I'm doing now and what I've done most of my life, I've always taken this student development approach to my work in college athletics. How do we help you grow? And that's what you talk about. It's those three. The first two parts are essential to make the results happen. And it's not going to work. Attitude to me is both from a positive perspective and how you live your life. And then the second part, like I said, is I don't think you could teach work ethic. You could encourage it, and you could demonstrate it, and hope younger people pick up on it. It's as simple as when I was an athletic director, and I would be the last one in the gym, making sure the bleachers were cleaned out, and I'd have students watching me do it.
Yep.
And I would say, we're paying you, right? And then, oh yeah. But I would never be, if I could do it, everybody could do it. And as simple as that kind of thing is just show the effort, come across with the attitude that this is important, show the effort, and results will occur for sure.
I love that. Well, I appreciate you being here today with us. Is there anything I missed? Is there anything our audience needs to hear from you before we depart today?
I'm happy. I really appreciate that you were interested to talk to me. I encourage folks to follow you and use your services. And if I could ever help anyone, you can find me on LinkedIn, Robert Dranoff, and feel free to reach out. And if whether it's just to say hi or if I could help, and obviously Tanner, if I could ever help you further, just let me know.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you. Let's inspire others and continue to grow together.